What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, my name is Eric Cartafalsa. I trained myself into the low 90s, and now I help pitchers all over the world make the same transformation. And all we really do on this channel is talk about throwing 90 miles per hour. So if you don't want to hear about throwing 90, then click away. Today, we're going to be talking about how my athlete Nolan gained 5 miles per hour in 4 months, put on 15 pounds, and hit 90 miles per hour on his pull down. What I'm gonna do in this video, I'm gonna break down exactly what we changed about Nolan's training and how you can apply the training principles that we used into your own training. Let's get right into it. Okay, so before joining my program, Nolan was throwing 81 to 83 in games and throwing high 70s in bullpens. And while he was doing this, he had improper timing and he had a problem with his glove side, okay? And those two kind of built off of one another, okay? What Nolan was doing, he was pulling off to his left severely, and he constantly had low and away misses. And Nolan knew that he needed to work on those things, but he was only doing that once a week during an in-person lesson. And this wasn't enough for him to actually make serious progress. So what we did when he joined my program was we gave him daily structure, and what this allowed him to do was consistently work on those patterns that he needed to improve. And as a result of that, he was able to improve much faster, okay? And you might be thinking to yourself, what kind of drills, what kind of cues did you give to him? We had him doing a couple different constraint-led drills, but for the most part, we were getting him on a consistent throwing schedule with athletic catch. And what this allowed him to do was let his body sync up naturally, okay? I'm not saying that athletic catch is going to fix all of your problems. You probably do need to do a couple different constraint-led drills, but for Nolan, those drills mixed with an athletic catch routine allowed him to start cleaning up his mechanics and throw harder. A lot of guys think that you need to completely revamp your mechanics in order to throw harder, and that's just simply not true. What you actually need to do is find your most authentic mechanics, okay? And you're going to be able to find those in things like long toss, in things like pull downs, which have an external focus to them, right? You're just trying to throw the ball hard, or you're trying to throw the ball far, okay? You're not thinking about your mechanics when you do these types of throwing. So adding these in to a weekly throwing plan really allowed Nolan to both find his natural mechanics, and then we refined those things with the constraint-led drills that we did. And as a result, he got up to 85 miles per hour in his off-season bullpens. We cleaned up his direction. He started feeling way more athletic on the mound, and he got his pull down up to 90 miles per hour. And Nolan is far from finished. And as a side note, after we started making all of these changes, Nolan started to get a ton more interest from college coaches. Okay, so on the lifting side of things, before Nolan joined the program, he had no structure, okay? He had told me on our initial call that a lot of the lifting that he did just came from TikTok. And hats off to him for being honest with me, but he wasn't doing anything structured. He was trying out a bunch of different things and not really seeing any results. And this was a problem because his frame needed work. Now, Nolan wasn't super skinny by any means, but he could have benefited a lot from an added 10 pounds of muscle, and he wasn't getting any gains in the gym, right? And it's because he wasn't following anything structured. So what we did was we got him on a structured 3-day per week lifting routine, okay? And what we did was we built size the right way. And what I mean by that specifically is we didn't throw him into a bodybuilding style workout routine. What we did was we got him on an athletic style workout routine, and we made sure he was eating in a 200 to 300 calorie surplus, okay? We didn't want to go too crazy on the calories, and we wanted to make sure he was adding strength and adding size in the right way. And a lot of you watching this might be able to relate to what I'm saying right now, because you're probably watching videos on Instagram or TikTok trying to piece together workouts from there, and you might even be doing a bodybuilder type of workout routine. And this doesn't work, okay? You need to be on an athletic style lifting program, and you need to be consistent with it, okay? And that's exactly what we gave to Nolan. And as a result, he was able to add 15 pounds of lean mass. He was way stronger on all of his compound lifts. And the biggest part was we were able to transfer that strength that he built in the gym onto the mound, because so many guys can move weight when they're in the weight room. They can deadlift 500, they can bench 315, but they throw 82, okay? And it's because your training is bodybuilder focused. It's causing you to be tight. It's causing you to be unathletic, okay? So the work that we do in the weight room needs to be athletic, okay? And Nolan is a shining example of what happens when you make these changes. Okay, when Nolan first joined my program, mobility wasn't the main concern with him, but it was something we needed to address because he was having some elbow discomfort, okay? And in addition to that, he was guessing on the mobility exercises that he needed, and he didn't really have a system in place. So, what he was doing was going back to TikTok, going back to Instagram, trying to find different mobility drills for him to do, but didn't really have anything targeted to what he needed. So what we changed was we got him on targeted solutions that we integrated daily into his program, okay? I mentioned that Nolan was having some elbow pain. So one of the first things we did was assign him soft tissue work so that he can improve the tissues surrounding his elbow and prevent them from getting inflamed when he was throwing, because that was happening more often than not. And in addition to that, we gave him targeted solutions that attacked his spinal mobility too, because as a pitcher, you need to be able to have a fluid spine. You need to be able to rotate around the midpoint of your body so you can actually apply force into the baseball. So once we were able to get him on those targeted solutions with the right exercises, with the system in place, his movement cleaned up and he looked way more athletic on the mound. We basically got rid of all his arm pain, and he actually had a plan of attack, because in his program, his mobility was laid out for him every single day. So he didn't have to guess, he didn't have to worry. All he had to do was log in and execute. And that's exactly what he did. Okay, so in terms of his athletic and speed work, Nolan really didn't have that in place, okay? Now, he wasn't unathletic by any means before he joined. He had talent, but he didn't really have a channel for development. He was doing some work with his travel team. He was doing some work with his in-person pitching instructor, but nothing was ever set in stone and structured so that he could actually make progress. So what we changed was we made athleticism the foundation. Now, what does that mean? Okay. We got him doing things outside of the weight room and outside of his throwing sessions that made him more athletic in general. Things like constraint sprints, things like broad jumps, things like med ball throws. All of those exercises contributed to Nolan becoming a better athlete overall. And you might be sitting there and wondering, why is that so important? Well, a lot of people get this wrong, and they think that you need to work on your mechanics first when you're not really athletic. And that is completely backwards, because if you're not athletic, it's going to be really hard for you to make mechanical changes, because chances are the drills that you're trying out, you're not even athletic enough to do them correctly. So with Nolan, we got him to become a much better athlete. And as a result of that, he was able to make changes much quicker, right? Much quicker than if he were to just hop into some random drills and try them out. And one of the funniest parts about his transformation is that he saw improvement in places outside of pitching. So for example, his exit velocity went up as well. And I'm going to include a screenshot right here, because that's what happens when you make athleticism the focus over mechanics, okay? I'm not saying mechanics don't matter. They definitely do. But as a pitcher trying to throw harder, We want to make sure that you are a good athlete first. And that is exactly why Nolan is throwing harder than he ever has, is getting more interest, and is on pace to have an absolutely killer high school and summer season. So what really tied Nolan's transformation together was the fact that he didn't have to guess anymore. He knew exactly what he needed to do every single day that he went to the field, went to the weight room, or went to the facility. So if you're stuck in a similar spot to Nolan was, and you're tired of guessing, tired of hoping, and tired of doing things that simply don't work, you're not alone. But you can change it. Click the first link in the description below and book a call with me. We'll talk about where you're at, what you've tried, where you're trying to get to, and how I can help, just like I did for Nolan and hundreds of other pitchers around the world.